Today I want to talk about the 4 things that I look for when I look at variation clauses, because poor variation management can be like a big black hole in the middle of your project and all of your profit just drains away, never to be seen again. So how can you use the contract to help you plug that hole? Well, first you want to at least have a look at the variation clause and make sure you understand it. And here are the 4 things that I look for. First, make sure that there's a requirement that variation orders have to be given in writing prior to the services being commenced. That's helpful to both the principal and the contractor, because then you've got a documented record of any changes to the scope. Ideally, you'd have any implications on the costs and the program agreed before you get started on the varied services as well. Number 2, make sure there's a way of dealing with variations that are disguised as directions. There should be a commitment for the principal or the head contractor or their superintendent to confirm in writing whether a direction is actually a variation. And that way you can access the valuation procedure, which I'll come to in a moment. But be careful, because there's often time bars associated with those kinds of clauses. And thirdly, speaking of time bars, are there notification periods in the variation clause, and are they achievable? And here you want to think about the processes that you have or that you might need for things that are happening on site to be communicated back to the relevant project manager and for the variation process to be engaged. And fourthly, is there an objective process to value variation claims? So typically this is going to look like a cascading clause, and the top part will say, the price implication will be as agreed between the parties. But if that doesn't work, then it will be determined by reference to the schedule of rates in the contract. But if there's no schedule of rates, then it'll be a price determined by the superintendent. And if that's the case, you want to make sure that the superintendent is obliged to act reasonably when they're making their determination. But what about if the contract's already signed and none of that stuff is in there? Well, it's not great, but it's not the end of the world. And there are a few project management strategies that you can deploy to mitigate the risks of variation losses. But you'll have to wait for my next video to find out what I think about those. Thanks for watching. See you next time.